All right, Shalom. Before I get started, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai, Ba'Shem Rakakwadash, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who rule and teach well, and also peace and safety to the Akim that spread across the four corners of the world. It's pushing out this truth with all diligence and putting their lives on the line to do so. I'm the brother Karat Zahi out of Great Millstone, Atlanta. Back at you with another lesson. Just going into the topic of our people being destroyed, for the lack of knowledge. This lesson was inspired. I'm pretty sure brothers seen it, of the Jake. He basically killed, a police officer because like a couple of days before his son was, murdered, by a police officer. So he took it upon his own hands, to kind of get revenge, for his son, so to speak, or so-called revenge. But having the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the scriptures, and we spoke about this at this past week's camp about understanding, judgment, being a judge of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. All right, these people don't understand judgment, man. Especially, mainly our people, which are you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. You lack understanding and judgment, when it comes, to situations that arise in life. But, we were blessed with the ability to understand the judgment, so we could see certain things like this, in the worldly eyes. It may look like, the guy, did the right thing, which, I don't know the fullness of the story. The police officer could have been an Edomite. That's not the point, that I'm getting at. It's just the point of, understanding, the judgment of the Lord. So this is Jeremiah chapter 8 and verse 7. And it says, the stork in the heaven knoweth her appointed times. It says, and the turtle and the crane and the swallow observe the time of their coming. But my people know not the judgment of the Lord Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. You see, so our people, they ultimately don't know the judgment of the Lord. Because what does the scripture say? Matter of fact, let me go to it. 1 Samuel chapter 2 and verse 6. The Lord Yahweh killeth and maketh alive, and bringeth down to the grave and bringeth up. You see, so ultimately that judgment that was brought, upon that man's son, ultimately was from the Lord. But, like I said, the guy kind of took matters into his own hands, and end up, he's going to lose his life in prison, by making a, irrational decision, trying to seek vengeance for his son, and remember the scripture says, whosoever perishes being innocent, so no one who's put to death or dies, is innocent, whether it be in this life or your past life. It's ultimately just judgment from the Lord. So it says what? He kills and he makes alive. So the same way, that you receive, life, is the same way that the Lord, can take it from you. And with us, even with us, having, the knowledge of that, we're still in the flesh, so it's harder to grasp, but at the end of the day, we still have the understanding and able to make judgment calls based on the decision of these people, and that's what we try to get, our people, to understand. Because I don't even think, the officer that that the father killed, I don't even think that it was the same officer that murdered his son. You see? He just wanted to seek vengeance to whoever it was. You know? So from there, I'm gonna go to the book of Hosea chapter 4 and verse 6. It says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." You see, yeah, our people, which are you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, like I said, are destroyed for the lack of knowledge. You're in a confused state of mind. Now, even though we hey, this is going to happen more often. Where you see regular civilians raising up, because prophecy speak on that, on the uproars of the people. So we're going to see this more often. These people bucking up against the government, bucking up at police officers, and so on and so forth. Because the Lord is going to cause chaos, throughout, America, also known as Babylon in the scriptures. You're going to see more and more situations. This is not, the first time that something like this has happened. It's just, I just wanted to touch on the topic. But you're going to see more cases like this, man. You're going to see more, people, lose their sanity, because, the earth is in a mourning state. Like the scriptures say, when the wicked are in authority, the people mourn. But when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. You see? But going back to the point, our people, they're not going to get, the true understanding until they're into the kingdom. So they're going to be destroyed for the lack of knowledge. It says, because thou hast rejected knowledge, and ultimately it's because these people have rejected the knowledge of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. Because the message is being put, out there. The message is out there. The prophets are on the highways and byways. Lessons are being put out at a high rate. But these people reject it. And this is an example of someone lacking knowledge. Making irrational decisions. This is a perfect case for that. Now the guy, let's say, the guy didn't go out and murder, another police officer, right? Because the story was that, the cop shot, the father's son in the back, because they thought that, they thought that he had a gun, right? So say the father didn't make that irrational decision, and he took that case, to court, right? He possibly could have came out of that with millions of dollars and be set for life. Not saying, that that money replaces your son, but it's just a simple fact that it could have been a better outcome, Or hell, you could have went after the cop that actually did it, But this goes to show you, that our people are destroyed, and because they rejected Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, that the Lord is going to reject them. You see? It says, seeing thou hast forgotten the law of thy power, I will also forget thy children. You see, so the Lord isn't with everybody, man. The Lord isn't, on everybody's side. He's not showing mercy, to any and everybody, man. You know, and that's what you people got to start realizing. You know, that the Lord, you know, he this go around, he actually picked the side, which is the elect. You know, the Lord is on the side of the 144,000 and the 1/3, man. You know, not everybody. You see, so it's going to be cases where, you know, hell, even us, you know, we're still, you know, skating on thin ice with the Lord, man. You know, Lord willing, we be a part of the number. Scripture say that they shall scarcely be saved. You know, which is the elect. You know, so I just wanted to touch on that, you know, briefly. Lord willing, it was edifying. I'm gonna go ahead and close up by giving all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh by Hashem Yahushai, by Hashem Rakakodash, double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Till the next time, Shalom.